Hello friends, once again welcome to the Oracle EBS R12 functional presentation by logicwala.com. Today we are going to talk about a very high level understanding of how these various business processes fits into the e-business suite system. As you can see on the screen, there's an order fulfillment process, then there's a procurement process. Very commonly we call them a procure to pay process and an order to cash process. Of course, when I talk about cash and payment, it has to fit into finance, which is where GL, AP, AR module of those sorts and come into picture. So here you can see a very high level view of different Oracle EBS modules. You can see those modules, some of them here, general ledger, which is GL module in 11i. In R12 also there is general ledger, but there is another engine SLA which comes into picture, which comes into play. We already talked about it sometime, and we'll be talking into more details in the financial other financial training that we see later. Then assets, which is fixed assets module, cash management CM module, AP account payable, which you see here on the right, purchasing, which is here, that's the PO purchasing module, receivables AR module, order entry OE, or more commonly called as order management module. So let's see, we'll see this side of procurement first, then we'll go into order fulfillment. But I want to give you a very high level picture of a business process. Let's take example of any particular business. What a business does is they make something, they sell something. To make something, they need to buy something. So let's take an example of a car. Let's take Toyota for example. Toyota needs to sell a car. When a car is purchased, assuming that someone is, let's say, purchasing the car from Toyota, and an order is entered in Toyota's ERP system, which is basically the order entry. When someone enters an order in the Toyota system, they need to see if the car is available. If the car is not available, they need to make that car. Now, in order to make the car, they might need to buy some raw material, they need to buy some parts, they need to buy some labor, and they may need to buy some other equipment like tools, stuff like that. So that's where procurement comes into picture. Every organization, it has to do some purchasing in order to be in the business. It may be purchasing just some stationery, it may be purchasing some labor, it may be purchasing some software, it may be purchasing some tools and equipments, it may be purchasing parts, raw materials, whatever it may be. So purchasing is where we do our procurement, initiate the procurement. Now some of the setups that happen in purchasing is supplier. We need to have all your suppliers, all your vendors and their sites in purchasing module setup. So we'll talk about the setups in purchasing session. Then you enter purchase requisition. We already I think we have seen the requisition where we enter what we are going to buy, what we want to buy, and how much, and from where, kind of thing. So you enter purchase requisition using auto create or manually create a purchase order. Once you have a purchase order created, you release it to the supplier. Once supplier ship you those products, you enter receipt of those products. Once you have received the products, you actually run a process to pay on receipt, and then that basically comes and gets you into the payables module. In payables module, you enter invoices for whatever goods you have bought. You create payments for those goods, and there may be okay, so this is basically a supplier transaction. Now you may be actually buying labor, which could be your employees, which could be your contractors. Your employee can or will be entered as a supplier if you are going to process their expenses. So employees, when enter an expense report, they are treated as a supplier who is supplying some services, and you are providing their expense reimbursement through the payables module. So expense reports are also paid through payables module. And of course prepayments, if you want to apply some prepayments to invoices, against invoices, so things of that sort. Now you see everything in the end comes into GL one way or the other. So here you see all the purchase acquisition, receipt accruals, and period and journal import, they come into journal. This is 11i, so you are seeing journal. But in R12, using sub ledger accounting, this transaction in ledger purchasing comes into the sub-ledger accounting engine, which is a rule-based accounting engine in R12. Using sub-ledger accounting, these transactions are then filtered and processed based on their predefined rules and then sent it over into general ledger. Similarly, in payables, all these invoices, all these payments that are processed, they are transferred to GL through sub-ledger accounting, and then the journal import is done, and then that's basically when you have the GL transactions entered here. Again, talking about GL, in GL you can enter journals manually, or like you see here, it comes through sub-ledger accounting. You can enter budgets, you can enter encumbrances, like this purchase order here is coming into the encumbrance also. You see a dotted line, which means it's not mandatory, it's optional. And then you also have the balance update. So basically, based on the journal entry, based on the budgets, you have all the account balances over here in GL. Again, here when I enter an invoice, I may be affecting an asset, so that goes into a fixed asset as a transaction. Tax accounting in R12 is much different. There's a whole global tax module, so let's not even talk about this tax accounting here, but you understand that everywhere there's a tax calculated for across the business. You depreciate and you do capital budgeting in your fixed asset module. Cash management, where you manage your bank statements and forecast and things of that sort, and you reconcile the bank statement here also. By doing the payments, you reconcile it in the cash management module, and here again you reconcile it in the bank statement here from the receipts in the cash management. But all this has not everything, but a lot of this has changed with the bank with the specially designed bank module in R12. So there's a lot of difference, but from a high level process perspective, the procure to pay process works like this. And now we go to talk about order to cash process. So you purchase the raw material, you made or manufactured the goods, which is a manufacturing process. We are not talking about that. That's not in the scope of this slide. We'll talk about it later, maybe in this session, but not today. So manufacturing takes place. You have a work in process, everything gets built, and you have the car ready to be shipped to the customer. So basically then you are ready to book the order, right? Earlier when you got the order, you probably put it on a back order, or you gave a longer duration later ship date to the customer. Now it's ready. You book the order, you pick the goods, you release, and you ship the goods, and you confirm the shipment. So basically there's the ship confirm process. You create a trip, you create a delivery, and then you ship confirm. So that happens in order management module. There may be chances that the material is returned, so you process an RMA for that. Once you have shipped everything, you send invoice to the customer. You basically say, okay, I shipped you the goods, pay me, and then the invoice has to be paid by the customer. And for that matter, you have to have the customers in the receivable module. Now again, here you are seeing the customers have to be entered in the receivable module. There are some changes to the trading community architecture, and it's not exactly the same as it was in 11i, but in R12 it's a little bit different. But anyway, so customer has to be there in order to generate the invoices for them. You may also have a credit memo issue to the customer if there is an RMA. So things of that sort, you might have overcharged them, or you may need to give them some credit or whatever. So you do all those kind of transactions here. Again, once you do a ship confirm, there is a auto invoice program that runs. You can run it nightly, you can run it on demand, which basically pushes all the confirmed deliveries, all the confirmed orders as an invoice into the interface, and then it automatically creates the invoices. Then invoices go into collection if they are not paid, or if they are not paid on time, things of that sort. Once the invoices are paid, you apply the receipts and then reconcile the bank statement. So that's on a very high level, the order to cash and the procure to pay process. We'll go into the details of these setups. We'll set up the financials, we'll set up the purchasing module, we'll set up the payables and receivables. Especially in the financial DVD, you will see that I'm talking about GL setups, SLA, little bit of fixed assets, more of payables, receivables, general ledger, and the SLA modules. Just I also want to talk about the multi-org in R12. Multi-org is a server-side enhancement which helps you in keeping the transactional data and some of the setup data separated and secured by different lines of businesses. So what that means is you have multiple lines of businesses, you have multiple orgs, you have multiple operating units. Using multi-org access control, you can separate the data so that people can access based on their responsibilities, based on their roles. They can have access to multiple business units even if they use a different ledger. You can secure the access to data in a single instance by line of business. It will also help you define different organizational models. Again, in 11i you have to switch your responsibility to do different kind of transaction, but using the multi-org access control, which is MOAC, you can have selling and shipping from different legal entities from the same place. You can procure and receive from different legal entities from the same place. You can produce report across entities or within a single entity from the same place. So these are some of the features that multi-org provides you. Going back to basics of Oracle, in Oracle you have a business group, you have a ledger, you have legal entity, you have operating units, and then you have inventory orgs. So a business group is basically for the HR information and the purchasing approval hierarchy. So let me, why not draw it for you. So what you have is basically a business group. You have a ledger, you have a GRE or a legal entity, you have an operating unit, and you have an inventory org. So a business group partitions HR and PO. Let me make the font size a little bigger so you can see it better. Maybe it's still smaller. That makes sense. All right. So you have these different levels, and business group has HR and PO. Basically, it partitions the HR information and purchasing approval hierarchy. It can be set up to model a consolidated enterprise or a particular division or an operating unit. It doesn't have any accounting impact because this is separate from your financial hierarchy. You can have multiple legal entity which can be related to a single business group, right? But you must have one business group, and setup business group is a default. There is a setup business group which comes with the pre-installed, with the seeded Oracle functionality. You have a setup business group, but then you can create your own business groups if you want to add your own business groups. When it comes to finance, ledger is the financial reporting entity. So this is where we have the 4 C's, right? The chart of accounts, the calendar, the currency, and the conventions. It represents a legal company where we have the taxation, the reporting, and it is identified through a unique ID that is given by the government, so the registration authority. Basically, whether you get a employer identification number or you get like a PIN number or whatever. Some countries have different kind of numbers for the organization. So it is basically registration of a legal entity. Again, so legal entity in terms of Oracle is an enterprise. It's basically the highest level of your global organization. Operating unit, it's under the legal entity, and basically operating unit is, you can talk about operating unit as related to a sub ledger, right? So ARPO, AR, AP, OM, in these modules you work at operating unit level. So GRE or legal enterprise, GRE is more of an HR term, legal entity is more of a financial term. Ultimately, a legal entity represents the enterprise as the highest level, and it could be the legal employer. It may report to an operating unit or ultimate legal entity. So consolidated legal entity is a new feature in R12 which acts on behalf of multiple operating companies that are not legally registered. So there is a new concept you need to understand, which is consolidated legal entity. Okay, so this is basically a very high level of introduction. And OU of course, like operating unit I mentioned, it's a autonomous business unit which is going to secure a set of data. So when you go to modules like AP, PO, AR, OM, you are going to differentiate the data based on operating unit. So operating unit can support different business policies and workflows. Each operating unit may have a different workflow. It can be a major division of a company. The access using multi-hour control is limited by the operating unit, and there is a profile option called MO operating unit. There's something like MO operating unit. So we'll go into the detail of that. We'll probably create a new profile, and then we'll attach that profile to the security group, and we'll attach the profile to it and all those kind of things. We'll do it in the next session, but I think that's it for this session. Thank you.